Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for another episode of Restore the Floor, your Detroit Pistons NBA podcast with Evan Jenkins. I'm Stoney, and Ev, we talked after the San Antonio game, wasn't so great, but now, ladies and gentlemen, they did beat Oklahoma City by 8 points, but they beat an Oklahoma City team that I'll say it was more than a G League team, but it was without SGA and Holmgren and then Hartenstein and the Jalen Williams that everybody knows about, and even Caruso. And then Isaiah Joe gets hurt. So they win the game. They did what they had to do. But I don't know. I hate to be negative when they now definitely have the best record in the league. But, man, they showed some things that I didn't like, but it's one game, so I'm not going to go crazy. It's like, Ev, did you think, first of all, they came out, it was ridiculous how bad they played at the beginning, but, they come back, it looks like they're going to be a double digit, it looks like they're going to blow them out, and then all of a sudden, they stopped playing Piston basketball. They got really casual. I mean, the fact that the Thunder, 30 second chance points, that against the Pistons, that's unheard of. Well,
yeah, especially they didn't have any size out there either. The Thunder had zero size because it was all hanging out on the bench. But I didn't love the effort at the start of the game, like you said, but I hated the fourth quarter that they even let them back in that game at all. The fact that they were able to cut it to 4 multiple times with under 3 minutes left. Now, thankfully, Cade Cunningham put the team on his back, made a couple clutch buckets, so on and so forth. But, yeah, you're right. You don't want to see that kind of effort or that kind of game when it's against a team that's depleted. But if you think about it, go a couple weeks back, they did the same exact thing against the Washington Wizards right after the trade deadline where they threw up a stinker. So I don't know if it's, smelling your own stuff or reading your own press clippings or taking them light or whatever. Or people are going to say, well, they're still professional players. They get paid too. That's the old cliche. I didn't love it, but you take it and you hope you learn from it. And then they might even get a pass on Friday with James Harden.
That's true. And somebody said Mitchell might not even play, which would be ridiculous, but whatever. That's the way the NBA is. And we're scheduled to have a special guest on the program today, former Piston coach, and now he works for Prime? Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah, he made some waves the other day when he was doing an interview with FanDuel TV, just saying some of the concerns that we've had, and we get to ask him about it, so that is exciting. Yes. And before anybody wants to try to knock him because he didn't necessarily win here when he was the head coach of the Pistons.
Relevant.
Dude's been around basketball his entire life and knows more in the 10 minutes that we'll ask him than we'll ever know about basketball in our entire lives, just being that close. And what I don't love about the game last night is running so many damn plays for Duncan Robinson. I understand he is your three-point shooter, and that's fine. But I don't think he's a guy that you want to set up and run plays for as consistently as they are. Now, maybe, it was an anomaly against the Thunder and they did more so than what I'm used to, but I get he comes off screens and can knock down the three, but where Duncan Robinson really thrives is where others are crashing into the paint and being able to get that kick out and knock down those wide open threes. So listen, we're going to nitpick until we see a championship raised here in Detroit, and rightfully so. There's no free passes in professional sports.
No, and it sucks that you come across being negative when the team has the best record in the league.
Yeah, we're not knocking this team. We're just criticizing what gets you an NBA title in this league. Exactly.
But, if we're going to talk about, the Oklahoma City game, I mean, Cade was ridiculous, especially on the defensive end that people don't give enough credit for, I guess,
Yeah, I think – a parallel that I like to say, it's like cornerbacks on Cooper Kupp in the NFL. You always wonder, why the hell does he keep getting open? And I don't think people respect him. And I think that's the same way with Cade, is his athleticism doesn't jump off the paper to you, but I think they take him a little lightly until they really get there. And, it's an interesting thing because he has stepped up, I think, 4 straight games with 2+ blocks and all these crazy stats that the NBA picks up.
All right, we're joined on Restore the Floor by the former coach of not only the Pistons, but the Heat, the Magic, the Pelicans. He now does great work on prime NBA broadcast. He is SVG Stan Van Gundy. What's happening?
Not a lot. Thanks, guys. Great to be with you.
Yeah, and I love the fact you're wearing the Old English D hat. You still follow the Detroit teams, and we got it pretty good. All four teams are good, at least.
When we came up there the first time last month to do Pistons Rockets, actually, I said that in our production meeting. I said, and our sideline reporter actually asked the mayor about it. She was at the game. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since all four teams have been this good at once, because the only one, it's strange because the one who might be the best team is going to be the only one not to make the playoffs, the Lions. But it's part of it because of the injuries and part of it because of sort of a dumb system that the schedules aren't very balanced, and the better you are, the tougher schedule you play. I think the Lions will run away with that division next year because they're going to get a fourth place schedule and they're going to dominate.
If they can figure out their offensive and defensive lines, yeah, they will. What do you, from afar, what do you think of your former team, the Pistons? I mean, there have been teams in the past, I think, going way back to like the Bullets when they sucked and then they drafted Monroe and then unsold the following year. But a team that was so freaking bad a couple of years ago, and now as we speak, they have the best record in the NBA. I don't think anybody here thinks they're the best team, but the fact that they have the best record, it's pretty freaking incredible.
Well, I think they are the best team. I think they're certainly the best regular season team. I think what people need to understand is the regular season and the playoffs are two different challenges. And the challenge in the regular season is how often, how frequently can you be near your best? So how consistent are you? How tough are you? There's nobody in my mind that touches Detroit in that stat. The challenge in the playoffs is everybody's going to be ready. There's no letdowns. What level is your best? That's where I'm not sure. I think Detroit's very good. I'm not sure they're the best team in the East by that metric, but they're the best regular season team. That team, as a former coach, I love the Pistons because that team comes and competes every single night. I see fewer game plan mistakes. I see fewer lapses out of them than anybody. And it's a very together, hard-playing team. Like, if you're somebody who loves basketball, you don't have to be a Detroit fan. If you love basketball and don't love the Pistons, then I don't know what you're watching.
If there's one criticism about this team going into the playoffs, at least from Stoney and myself, we mentioned secondary scoring behind Cade Cunningham. Now, some fans are going to look at it and they're going to say, well, Duren averages 18, Tobias averages 13. They're going to look at the stat sheet. But I think what we're talking about is another player other than Cade Cunningham that can create a shot on his own. Where do you see that coming from on the Pistons team in the playoffs? Like, where do they get that scoring?
Well, I think you guys hit it on the head, and I think that's going to be their problem. To me, okay, Duren's scoring is great. That's Cade Cunningham creating those shots. Duncan Robinson, great shooter. That's Cade Cunningham creating those shots. The only other guy really that can create his own shots and score, in my mind, is Tobias. And off the bench, Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert is streaky, but he can get going and create his own. I think the problem is this. The floor is really going to shrink in the playoffs for Cade Cunningham. I know people try to do that during the year. I just know in my experience as a coach, 1 hour walkthrough on the day of a game, you're going to get a certain level of focus. But when you're in a playoff series, guys are going to really hone in on a game plan. I don't think Cade's going to get a lot of room. The only guy who really would scare me shooting the ball that I've got to stay home on is Duncan Robinson. Everybody else, now Javonte Green's had a great year, but everybody else, I'll live with it. I'm going to do everything I can to keep Cade Cunningham out of the paint. And I think that's what they're going to face in the playoffs.
The last game, I think it was, or it could have been another game, that you did a Piston game, and you talked about how Trajan Langdon did such a great job in identifying some talent like Danis Jenkins and B-Ball Paul, because Paul Reed's been really good as the third-string center, if you want to call him that. But is it fair to sit there, because we sit there at the deadline, and a lot of the other teams in this town are kind of the same. We're good, but nobody's willing to, I don't know, make that all-in move to be great. And maybe it's because the Pistons are ahead of schedule, because I don't know what they would have to give up to have gotten guys like, Michael Porter Jr. or Trey Murphy or something like that. But at the deadline, it's like, Kevin Huerter, that's it? You couldn't do more than that, because that fits into what you're talking about from the outside scoring. They didn't do enough at the deadline.
I worked 1 year with Trajan Langdon. That is one really smart dude. And I think he's done a really good job. And I'm sure he was looking. Everybody looks. It always comes down to what you have to give up. The Pistons have good young pieces. You're not going to give up a bunch of those guys to take a one-time shot when this is a team that's got a window that's open. You're already the best team in the East. Yeah, I'm sure Trajan went looking for more shooting. Kevin Huerter's a guy he could come up with at low cost. If Kevin Huerter could rediscover his three-point shot from where he was, say, 3 years ago, okay, but I think you've got to look at some of the moves that Trajan's made. You mentioned Danis Jenkins, phenomenal find. Paul Reed, somebody who's never gotten enough attention in this league. Every time Paul Reed, anywhere he's been, has gotten an opportunity to play, the guy's produced. And he keeps himself ready, a perfect guy to have on your bench. Javonte Green, tremendous pickup, flew under the radar, but tremendous pickup. He's shooting the ball better than he ever has in his career. And he's a guy who will go get you steals, loose balls, get on the offensive boards, creates extra possessions. They've made some good moves, but they've also, I think, let this group, the core of this group, develop together. And I think sometimes you can make too many moves and be jumping all over the place, and you don't let any continuity and chemistry develop. This group has that. You can tell that they trust each other and believe in each other. It's a perfect team for JB Bickerstaff to coach. I don't think people pay enough attention. This is JB's type of team. Physical, hard-working, hard-playing. Everything fits there in Detroit. And, yeah, would you like to have a little more shooting? Sure. But there's not one team out there, including Oklahoma City and San Antonio, that doesn't have something you'd like to have a little more of. The problem is, to get a little more shooting, do you give up some defense, which is your identity? That's the challenge. I would right now, I think what you've seen in these last 2 years, I would trust very much in the leadership of the Pistons. I would trust in Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff right now, based on what I'm seeing on the floor.
Let me throw a name at you. Suppose, and there's a rumor that Dallas is going to buy out Chris Middleton. Would he be somebody who would fit in with this team? He won a championship. I don't know how much he has left to at least be a more productive scorer than what they have.
Again, who do you have to give up, and whose minutes is he going to take away?
Right. It's more than minutes, because you wouldn't have to give up anything now.
But so you're going to you're going to take his minutes and take what, Asar Thompson's minutes? Well, then are you what has now become the best defense in the league? Because Asar Thompson and his brother are the two best perimeter defenders in the NBA. So you're going to give Asar up? Take away his minutes to give Chris Middleton minutes. Probably what you would just end up doing is using him off the bench. But
Yeah.
So you would have either he or Duncan Robinson into the game. But then who are you going to take? You're going to take Javonte Green's minutes? I wouldn't. You're going to take Karis LeVert's minutes? Karis LeVert, to me, has the next best chance behind Cade Cunningham of creating shots for you. I'd be careful with the move like that. We've seen teams do it, and a couple of years back, right? Oklahoma City went and got Gordon Hayward at the trade deadline. You remember that? Gordon Hayward had no impact. If I were the Pistons, until a move that's sort of a no-brainer is out there, let this team keep going the way they are. You want to add Chris Middleton as insurance or something? Yeah, but
just for this year, because his
I wouldn't disrupt what you have going with the chemistry. I would not.
Now, I have a question about a guy that they did move on from, and that was a guy that was supposed to be a piece of the core in Jaden Ivey. Stoney and I talked about it, and I said maybe they were better off keeping him since Herter doesn't play and he was given minutes. And then I saw his interview in Chicago where he said the old J.I. is dead. I'm not him. He's not coming back. Do you think that was a move of that they didn't want kind of, and might be a wrong word, but pouting from a player in that locker room where they have such good things going on? Because people are like, well, they didn't want to pay for him. Well, you didn't have to pay for him because he would be a restricted free agent. I just wonder what the hell happened with that young man.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think there's a story there that we don't know. In my mind, he's a better player at this point than Kevin Herter, but that's not the whole story. It's how you fit into a team and everything else. And when a guy becomes unhappy in his role, you're not going to get the best out of him. He's not going to continue to develop. And sometimes you are better off moving on. I have never heard anything negative about Jaden Ivey, but if he was unhappy, maybe it was the move to make, and they've certainly got the depth to play past it. Maybe it was as simple as, you know what, we're trying to play too many guys. I want to give Javonte Green more minutes. I want to give Karis LeVert more minutes. I want to give Danis Jenkins, we're going to give him a contract, and we want to play him every night. So I don't think you could argue with any of those decisions.
Around the league, the big story has been this tanking thing here in Detroit. Wednesday night, Oklahoma City comes in and they got, SGA's hurt. Jalen Williams didn't play. Hartenstein, Chet. I mean, there were 6 guys. Some of it was legitimate injury. Some of it was the back-to-back stuff. What can the league do? I mean, a team like Oklahoma City comes in here once a year. A lot of fans were pissed off because this is a one game they can afford to go or whatever like that. What can Adam Silver do on the load management issue?
Well, look, Stoney, I think the first thing is you bring up a great point. I think the people we don't give enough thought to in this league is the fans. Without the fans, we don't have a league. None of us, broadcasters, sports writers, players, front office, nobody makes a living. Certainly not at the level we are without the fans. And so especially when you're going to the other conference and they've only got one opportunity to see you, I think we should pay attention. Now, I'm not speaking specifically of the situation last night because, quite honestly, Oklahoma City, A.J. Mitchell, SGA, those guys are legitimately hurt, and that team's trying to hold on to the number 1 seed in the West. Believe me, they're trying to win. So I would say
I think it's different. I'm not saying there's no tanking involved. They want to get the home court.
The tanking, to me, I probably oversimplify things, but the one that would do it to me is just eliminate the draft. There's no draft anymore. Everybody coming out of college is a free agent. They've still got to fit under the salary cap. No draft. There's no incentive to lose at that point. Now, you still may scrimp on a roster to get your salary cap down to be able to pursue free agents in the summer. But at least on a night-to-night basis, it does you no good. With whatever roster you have, there's no incentive not to play your better players, which has been going on in the league this year. The thing I'm encouraged by, I think it's always been something that Adam Silver has looked at and been concerned about, but it's at the top of his priority list now, and they're going to try to figure it out. Some of the solutions to me are convoluted. I think I would like to see three things gone. I would like to see the draft gone, the rookie salary scale gone, and the individual max on players gone. If you want to Cade Cunningham coming out of college, you want to pay him $70 million a year? Go ahead. Fit it under your cap. Go ahead. I think the individual max has done a lot to create inequality across the league, because if I can only pay a star X amount of money under the cap, well, now I can fit 2 stars and 3 stars. If you guys will give up $2 million a year maybe to allow his team to attract another star. They're not giving up $20 million a year. No. They're not giving it out. Now we would spread the stars out among the 30 teams. Now, here's the problem on cutting down the rookie salary scale, and if you cut the individual max, who won't go for that is the Players Association. The stars would go for that, but the rank and file won't. Because now if I can go pay Cade Cunningham $100 million a year, well, all these guys who are in the middle now are going to be playing for the minimum. And they also don't want rookies coming in. That's how the rookie scale started anyway. If you go back to the days of the one I remember is Glenn Big Dog Robinson coming into Milwaukee, getting a huge deal. Well, there's only so much money, and if you're going to have an unproven rookie coming in taking the money, these veteran guys don't get it, and they make up the majority of the Players Association voting on deals. So that's going to be your challenge there. Everybody thinks it's the owners. The owners don't care. They have a salary cap. They don't care if they're giving it to one guy or spreading it out around 10. I think there would be different strategies. But the Players Association, I think our stars, look, they make great money. So I know people won't sympathize with this. But to me, having an individual max on players is like saying you can make as much money from a Gladys Knight and the Pips concert as you want, but Gladys can only take so much of that because we want to give more money to the Pips. Well, you know what? I love the Pips, but I was paying to see Gladys Knight, okay? Yeah. And people are paying to see SGA and Jokic and Giannis and Luka. Let's let those guys make as much as they can possibly make, spread it out around the other teams, get rid of the draft, and let's go compete. But I think it's obviously I simplified too much. Adam's got a lot more he's got to worry about. I think the league has proven in a lot of ways that they are very solution-oriented. They never rest on their laurels as a league. They're always looking for better things, and so I think they'll at least try very hard to find a solution to this.
I want to take you back in a hypothetical Wayback Machine to 1994 when you were the head coach of Wisconsin. Let's say you saw a player like Victor Wembanyama and he wanted to walk and be a Badger. How would you have allowed him to play in 1994 compared to how he plays now? The reason I ask that is a big man shooting a three, let alone anybody shooting 10 threes a game, would be asinine in the 90s. How would you have coached a player like that in a different NBA? Like, would you have allowed him to be himself? I've just always wondered, because obviously basketball changes so damn much year to year, decade to decade, is what a guy like you would have done.
Yeah, you know what? It's a really great question, and it is hypothetical, and I don't know. I think, or I'd at least like to think, I'm a guy who tries to look at a player's skill set and maximize that rather than fit them into boxes. I think that I've done a pretty good job of that throughout my career. So I think I would let him be himself. Now, I think it's a fine line with Wimby, though, and I think Mitch Johnson and his staff have done a great job because he's still most feared when he's around the basket. So there has to be a balance, and how you help him find that, because you don't want him standing out on the perimeter. Like, I don't care how well he shoots the ball. I know as the opposing coach, the more times I have Victor Wembanyama 25 feet from the basket, the happier I am, because I got no chance when he's within 3 or 4 feet of the basket. Then it's a score or a foul. So you would have to balance some of that, but I hope I would find his skills. But here's the real point there. Nothing has changed more in this game. We talk about the changes in the number of threes, the pace of the game. What's really changed in the game is just what you brought up, the bigs. The big man has changed the game. It's not the low post bigs. And what changed it was the imports coming over from Europe. That's where it changed it. And it changed because, and I've said this for a number of years, Europe does a much better job of developing players than we do here in the United States. And so when they spend more time on player development at young ages, and they take all of their players at any size and they develop all of the skills. Everybody handles the ball. Everybody passes the ball. Everybody shoots on the perimeter. Everybody learns to post up. What we do here is we want to win the seventh grade championship. So we get the seventh grader to play to his strengths instead of developing the skills. I'll give you the best example I can, and I love the guy, so this is not a hateful thing. If Asar Thompson had grown up playing in Europe, we wouldn't be talking about his shooting because he would have learned to shoot the ball. But what happened here is, hey, the guy's a great athlete. Let's just take everything to the basket and defend and dunk and rebound, and we're winning games, and our AAU team is winning the Peach Jam and whatever the hell it is that no one cares about a year later. We don't develop players as well as they look at the skill level. Forget the athleticism. Look at the skill level of European players, especially the bigs. We cannot match that. And it's why Serbia, a country of 7 million people, I believe is all they have, had us on the ropes in the Olympics. 7 million people, that's all they've got. Skill development, player development over there, just a totally different picture than what we do here. And European big men changed the game, and now we do get some American bigs like that. But it started, in my mind, at least when it got attention, is with Dirk, and it's just grown from there.
Well, Rashid would have thrived in today's game because he loved taking threes back then, and maybe even Lambeer to make it local. Who do you think comes out of the East, by the way?
I think it's wide open, those top 4 teams, and I think you've got a wild card there in Boston. Is Jason Tatum going to play? At what level is he going to play? There's not one of those 4 teams that would surprise me coming out. I still think when I look at the roster, I think the best team is Cleveland. But the injuries they've had, they don't seem to defend with the same sense of urgency they did a year ago. I don't know if they get there. New York just will not guard consistently, but that offense is elite. Boston, again, I think in the playoffs, they're a little bit easier to play against than they are in the regular season. And I think that's played out. I mean, Detroit's as good as anybody if they can solve. I think if you can keep Detroit in the half court, then they're going to have a hard time scoring. If you're not letting them create turnovers and get out in transition, get on the offensive glass, I think they would struggle there. But they're the hardest playing team in the league. They're the toughest team in the league. And from what I've seen, they're the most focused team in the league.
And what about in the West? Is it Oklahoma City, or can a young San Antonio with Wemby do something?
I'll tell you what, it's tough to do with any group the first time you go through the playoffs, as we saw with Oklahoma City a couple of years ago. But we haven't seen guys like Victor Wembanyama. Those guards live in the paint. A little bit like what I said with Detroit, I don't know if they have enough shooting to carry them through the playoffs. but they played both ends of the floor. I think I think Denver is also a big threat. If I had to bet, which I wouldn't because I would probably never win, but if I had to, I would probably bet on the Nuggets, to be honest. I mean, you look where that team is, and they haven't been close to whole all year. Plus, they've got the best player in the world. And when they get together, Aaron Gordon, who's out now, Brown, who just came back, with Jamal Murray and Jokic and Cam Johnson. They've got a better bench. They improved. They took Oklahoma City to 7 games last year with an inferior roster. That would be my pick narrowly over OKC and San Antonio. But you guys know, you've been through sports, right, every sport long enough. A lot of it will come down to health. You know, who's going to have a whole roster and be able to play? It always comes down to health. I mean, I think 2 years ago, I thought the Lions were the best team in football, but they couldn't overcome all those injuries. Same thing happened last year to them, and they missed the playoffs. Like, I don't care what the sport is. It comes down to health. You know, do the Tigers have a chance? Yeah. If Tarek Skubal, God forbid, blows out his elbow, do they have a chance? No, they don't. I mean, it comes down to health. It always, always does. And that we have no idea where everybody's going to be throughout the playoffs. Like, what happens in Game 7 last year if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't go down? Maybe the Pacers win the champ. Like, right. Health, fans don't give that enough credit, or enough importance. They're like, yeah, I know they're hurt, but. No, not but. That's the problem. That's the problem right there. They're hurt. I mean, and so I would say on both sides, take the contenders, tell me who's going to be healthiest, and that's who I'll take.
I want to ask you one more thing about the Pistons, and that we are obviously biased because we're here, and he's getting a lot of national love, which he should. But from your perspective, how freaking good is Cade Cunningham?
Well, I said on our last broadcast there that if I had to vote right now, I'd vote him as the MVP. And it's not like I think he's one of the absolute elite players in the league. I don't think he's necessarily right now yet the best player in the league. But as far as value to his team, there's 2 things that stand out. Number one, he carries a huge shot creation burden. You guys mentioned it. I mean, there's really nowhere else for them to go. Everybody's living off of Cade. And yet he is still getting the job done. They're a top 10 offense. And to be honest, I don't have any idea how. It's because of him. Now, he turns the ball over a lot. He had 8, I think, last night, but it's because he has to have the ball in his hands all the time. And then the second thing is, if I line up all of the guys that you would think of as contenders for the MVP award, it would come down to him and Jaylen Brown as to who the best defender in that group is. Cade gives you a full effort on the defensive end every night. Now, he doesn't have to guard the other team's best player a lot because they have Asar Thompson. But when he gets switched on to him and stuff, you watch. And then you watch him off the ball in terms of his rotations and stuff. He is a great competitor. He's consistent as hell. If I had to vote today, I would vote for Cade Cunningham as my MVP.
Last thing, because you're a big Tiger fan, how pissed were you at Skubal took himself out of the game for the last game of the season last year?
Well, you know what? I mean, I think it's always hard with pitching nowadays, but I love the Tiger team. My son is a huge Tiger fan. I mean, he's one of those people who literally watches almost every game, which is hard to do in a baseball season. And I think he's right. They did a great job getting Valdez. I love their young guys. I hope we see McGonigal fairly soon. But we didn't really do a whole lot with that offense. And I know that year-long numbers, they'll go back and say, well, these were the numbers last year. Yeah, but that was all early in the season. At the end of the year, that offense really started to drop off, and I don't know if they have enough offense. I think Valdez and Skubal are going to have to win a lot of 2-1, 1-0 games. I do think their bullpen is a little more solid, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm not that far from Lakeland, and I had planned to get over there, but then I just get too busy. But I'm looking forward to watching them. Can't wait for the season to start. I'm actually going to go down. I'm hoping. I don't know what game Skubal's going to pitch, but I'm going to 2 games of the World Baseball Classic in Houston, the 9th and 10th.
He's pitching against Great Britain in the second game.
Yeah, you could pitch against England, Stan.
I don't think so. You haven't seen me pitch, but I was afraid of that. So maybe I'll get to see Skeens. But I'm going in there. The Mexico game is the biggest game of their pool, and I'll see that on the 9th. And plus, with it being in Houston, I know I went on to get tickets like 3 weeks ago, and it was hard then to find good seats. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm a big, big baseball fan.
I know you are. Hey, thanks.
I was a season ticket holder for 4 years in Detroit. Right behind the first base dugout, the Tigers dugout. I mean, the visiting team's dugout. And I've still got to get out there every year when I visit my son, who came back for Miggy's last series when he was finishing up, because we had started with him down in Miami when we were there. Big Tigers fan. But for the city of Detroit, I'm so happy because there's not better sports fans anywhere in this country. And I say that not when I'm on a Detroit show. I'll say that to anybody in any city. And to have all 4 teams good now, those fans have waited a long time with a lot of those teams and certainly deserve it. I'm really happy for the people of Detroit.
Stan, thank you very much. I'd love to get you once a year, and hopefully we'll see you for the playoffs coming up here. We appreciate it.
That'll be great. We can talk before the Pistons start the finals.
Okay.
There we go.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Stan.
Pencil me in.